This podcast will hopefully contain words or statements of obscene, pornographic, or immoral character. You have been warned. You have been warned. You have been warned.
I'm gonna hit this bitch finally. Well, that wasn't finally, but anyway, episode 4.
Woohoo!
Woo!
Come on, try it one more time.
Oh my god! All right, ready? I fucking know it's not there.
It's awesome too because I like watch your face as you're trying to do it, and I can see exactly when it's gonna fail.
And I'm thinking about it, and I know it's just going under. I'm gonna have to find my CD and rip it off of there.
Yeah. I expect you to have that down pat before episode 10. So I'll give you some time.
All right, I'll start practicing.
Cool.
I'll be in the shower. Kids will think I'm fucking nuts.
More than they already do.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
So I had a couple things I wanted to talk about before we get started today. The first thing is I don't know if you saw any of this, but there was the show in I think it's Tompkins Square Park. That's a place in New York that like outdoor place where they do shows. And I don't know, I didn't even know that was going on. And then I don't know, YouTube recommended me like, hey, you watched this before, check this out or whatever. And it was, I guess, like Madball played. Yeah,
I think they played last year. Like that was like the first big show last year was that Tompkins Square show.
Yeah, so it was like Madball, Murphy's Law, John Joseph Cro-Mags, and Burn played.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't watched their set yet, but the whole reason I'm even bringing this up is dude, I just wanted to say, man, Murphy's Law is still like the fucking best, man. They're like, honestly, like Jimmy has to be like mid to late 50s by now. And he like does that dude that he does not fucking age, man. The dude looks good. And he sounds good. And like their band right now is they have 2 guitar players, which they've never really had that I can recall them ever having 2. I don't think I've ever seen them with 2 guitar players, but yeah, they sound awesome with 2 guitar players because the one guy who's actually like playing the solos and stuff, like he really nails the solos, and then with the rhythm guitar, it sounds badass. And,
wow, that's awesome. I saw there was a woman playing bass for him.
Yeah, they have a girl playing bass. She seems really cool and like rocks out and stuff. But yeah, that there's like, if anyone hasn't seen that, I recommend checking that out. That set that they did, they just sounded really great. And you know, he's just an awesome front man, just gets the crowd going and stuff. And
yeah.
But anyway, the one thing I wanted to ask you about from watching that show is what are your thoughts on like big dude stage diving? because there's a lot of that going on in their set and like that Cro-Mag set, and especially the Madball set. There's this one. I wish I should have like written down the timestamp, so if anybody wanted to check it out. But the videos are separated, so you can just watch each band individually. But in the Madball set, there's this guy that, how like whatever, all the like cool guys are like lining the stage, like just standing up there watching the band from the sidelines and stuff. But out of nowhere, this fucking dude, he comes just like charging out from like behind the drums, I guess, because he comes out of frame from like the left-hand side. And this dude is just like a monster. And it's like, he didn't even like try to slow his momentum down to like get people braced for him. He's just like full on JJ Watt, like into the fucking crowd.
That's fucking crazy.
And I was just like, God damn it. And like people tried to catch him, and I was just like, God, man, like, I don't know. Like, it just got me thinking, like, what's my thoughts on that? Because I've thought about it before. Like, you know, you're at a show and you just like some big guy jumps on you and you're like, motherfucker, like you have no business stage diving. But I'm like, but maybe he does have business stage diving. I don't know.
Well, being a fat guy, I would say I would use that as my anti kung fu kick move. That would be my retaliation for the guys that fly around like doing their kung fu kicks. I'd be doing the fat guy stage dive. But I know that's not true. I don't know. There's still guys. I know that it's always been like cool and people don't try to kill each other, but that's not always true. There are fucking people there that just want to fucking pummel other people.
Yeah. I mean, like dudes who are just using their weight just to like throw their weight around and like, and and whatever, like I'm definitely not judging anybody because it's like everybody's got their own moves and stuff. But there's this one guy, it's funny out in the crowd. And he's a big guy, man. He looks like what's that wrestler from the 80s, like Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Like the 2x4 dude. Well,
yeah.
There's a guy out in the crowd that kind of looks like him, but like way taller. This dude's like, I swear to God, this guy's like 6'8", and he's just huge, has like long curly hair, and he's wearing just overalls and like no shirt underneath. And he's just like standing in the middle of the pit. And he's not even like really dancing. He's like his like small movements are just like destroying people.
Oh,
so it's just funny, like this one like random guy. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I think if you're a big guy and you're gonna stage dive, you need to be a little conscientious about the fact that you can't just like steamroll out into the crowd. You got to like slow your trajectory right before you jump a little bit, or you got to there's like give and take there. Like big guy stage diving, cool, but like just don't like fucking linebacker people. Like know your weight and like.
And that would be my question. Did he look like he was stage diving, or was he there just to maul and just fucking name people?
Yeah,
like go through and JJ Watt him, like you're saying. Like,
yeah,
is that the intent, or was he actually trying to get up in the air and stage dive?
Well, I think the first guy I was describing, he definitely, I don't know that he was trying to be like a dick and maul people, but it ended up that was what happened. I think it just like he got to the point of no return and jumped, and his jump wasn't great, and yeah, he just like murdered like 6 people. But anyway, I was curious what you thought about that.
No, it's weird because Gavin's so small and he goes in the pit and he dances the whole time. And like, he's the guy you want at the show because he's fucking dancing and enjoying himself. But you always run into these fucking guys that are just like, just there to bull over. They're my size and they're like, I'm fucking everybody up.
Yeah.
And then, then they go through and just club everybody and just fuck it. I don't know. It kind of sucks.
The ego bros.
The ego bros. We were up at a show in Lancaster for Integrity, and it was like I forget the name of the place. But the locals were there, and it was such a it was weird because you wouldn't think about it, but it was like a local scene, and like there was like a group of guys that would go through and fuck people up, and it was just they were having fun, but it was always targeted at other people who weren't there having the same kind of fun they were having.
Yeah, I got you.
And I mean,
that's been going on forever.
Yeah.
That's nothing new.
Yeah, it was crazy though. Theirs was weird. Like I'd never seen it. Like instead of like a pit or something, like it was like wall to wall. They go back and forth.
Like wall of death posse crew.
Yeah, but it was just like left to right, left to right, left to right. It was so weird.
Huh.
But
I've never seen that. That's odd.
Chameleon Club. Thank you. It took a little bit of time.
Right.
But I think they closed that place down. I think COVID's killed them.
Oh, damn. Yeah, there's definitely been a few places out here that like definitely I didn't think we're gonna make it through COVID, but they did. Surprisingly, I think there's really only one club that I can recall that actually didn't recover. after like COVID and stuff was kind of like phasing out. But yeah, so the other thing I wanted to say, and this isn't like no one's going to care about this. It's just happened right before we started. So it's just funny to me. Like no one else will probably care about this story, but it's just comical. So Trisha and I have this little section of our backyard in like one corner by the fence where we have sort of like a little like Lord of the Rings, like little tribute area set up. And we have like,
is it an altar?
It kind of is. Yeah. We kind of have like this little like Lord of the Rings altar thing outside. We have some like little like concrete mushrooms and stuff sitting around. And we have this Gandalf statue. And we also have this little like Schmeagol statue.
All right. So we're going to need a picture of that. We're going to have to set up like a fucking WordPress site so we can actually post dumb shit like this so people can see it.
Yeah, I mean it's really not that epic.
No, it's still epic because you at least have it.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, we're both like super into Lord of the Rings, and so anyway, yeah, we have this little thing out back, and the Gandalf statue. It's they're actually, so the Gandalf is actually sort of like an action figure. He's like an oversized action figure. It's like 18 inches tall.
I was gonna say about 18.
Yeah, and it's really cool, and I've actually had it outside for maybe close to 10 years now. So he's like super weathered, and it actually like looks really cool. He actually like has like cool like patina on him now. And so anyway, he's sort of like the guardian of the yard, and then we have this little like Schmeagol like action figure thing beside him, which is kind of like the same deal. He's like scaled to Gandalf, and right. There's like this little like rock thing that he sits on. And so where he's positioned in the yard and where he is, it's like essentially it's impossible for that thing to get moved. Like it should always stay there. Like there's like the wind can't blow it. Like nothing can really fall on it to like move it. And ever since I've had that thing out in the yard, this is probably, so we had the Gandalf in our old yard before we moved. But at this place we're at now, we've been like almost 7 or 8 years. And so it's been there that whole time. And the whole time we've lived here, at least once or twice a month, he's moved like 3 feet, like away from like where he normally sits.
It's like Fey folk.
I don't know. So we've made all kinds of jokes, about it, like whatever, like Frodo's like sick of it, or Sam's sick of him and like fucked him up. But yeah, nice. So we're just like, how does this happen? Like the wind can't get back there. So we just have gotten to the conclusion that there's like animals at night that fucking hate that thing and like fight it. Probably
that would be awesome. We need trail cam footage of that.
So
shit.
I do. So this is exactly why I'm bringing it. So it's like, I'm wondering if I should trail cam the yard to like see what happens, because the other thing that's cool about this figure is he has an interchangeable head. So when I got the figure, he has like Schmeagol head or Gollum head. Okay. So I actually have the Gollum head on him. I said Schmeagol, but yeah, it's actually like the Gollum head face, and the eyes like are very creepy. And I can actually like look out our window at night, and if the light hits it, you can actually see like the eyes kind of like light up in the yard. Yeah. So yeah, I think that thing is just like ground level. And I just think there's some like raccoons or like possums or something cruising through at night and see that thing and are just like, what the fuck is this? And they're probably like, they probably attack it because they're like, get out of our like zone.
Wait a minute, which one moves, Schmeagol or Gandalf?
No, Gollum, the little Gollum statue.
The Gollum.
No, so the only thing that ever happens to Gandalf is his hat gets knocked off. So anyway, the only reason I'm even bringing this up is because
earthquakes.
I was in, well, you know what? That's actually, so that could be possible that's part of that maybe. But the thing is like a lot of times it's like 4 feet away from like where he would normally be. So an earthquake would maybe knock him over, but I don't think it would make it like fly that far.
Right. That's fucking funny.
But yeah, I was just looking out the window right before we got started and I was like, motherfucker, like someone attacked him again. So anyway,
shit.
not that funny of a story, but I was just
it's
like,
an awesome story because
it
you need to
happens-
trail cam that shit.
yeah, it happens so often, like literally like once or twice a month. I'm like, I'll like even text her at work. I'll be like, somebody fucking attacked Gollum again.
Oh shit.
So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's
I don't have any awesome. My backyard, we have the pot shed, and that's it.
oh,
It's not even for me.
Yeah, the pot, I was actually thinking about the pot shed the other day, as a matter of fact.
Oh my god.
That was comical. I don't know if you want to share anything about that or not, but
oh no, I kicked the boys out of the house from smoking pot in my house. I know I wasn't going to stop them, and I didn't want them going somewhere stupid and get them busted. So I turned over the place I was going to make my office to them so they could fucking smoke outside and at least be under a watchful eye, if you will.
yeah,
The eye of Sauron.
see, that's good parenting right there, and I'm not even joking. Like that's like a fucking cool dad move, man. Because like a lot of dads would be like, not be that cool about it. It's like, dude, it's like, they're at the fucking pot smoking age. They're gonna smoke pot. It's like it's gonna fucking happen. So like, give them a place to do it. It's cool.
And that's it. It's a safe haven for them. I mean, am I stoked that they do it there all the time? No, not at all. But it's better than them going somewhere else and doing it.
The best part for me is when I was back visiting and like their level of stoked to show me the pot shit. Like that was what was cool.
I made fun of I told Cooper that you made fun of the weed smell, that it smelled all skunky and shit. He's like, no, that's Gavin. That's Gavin's weed.
Oh yeah. Well, shit. So I guess I could tell this story. I don't know if I told you this or not. Did I tell you about what happened when I was back visiting last time at my grandmother's house?
Maybe.
With, like the weed story?
No, not the weed story. So this would be awesome.
Oh my God. I thought I had told you this. Yeah, this is awesome. So, well, I mean, maybe it's not awesome. Maybe this is actually really horrible. And it paints me as being a terrible grandson. I don't know, but
no.
So anyway, last time I was back, so usually when I come back to visit, like if I want to get weed, I have plenty of hookups. So it's like never like a problem. I usually end up getting some shit from my uncle, which I did again on that trip.
That is fucking funny.
And, so anyway, I like went up to his house, got some, and so whatever, I just had some for when I was back. And, I was like I'm always super busy when I'm back, as you know. It's like tons of driving around and just like visiting people and shit. And then it had been like almost probably 4 or 5 days since I'd even like done anything. And there was this one day, it was just a super busy day, and I was like fucking fried. And I was back for 3 weeks on that trip, and I never got out of that like jet lag phase the whole trip. I don't know what happened. I just felt like I never really kind of got
they
East Coast time.
Blows.
And yeah, it sucked. And so anyway, there was this one day I was super busy. I got back to my grandmother's, and she stays up kind of late, but she was already in bed, and it was probably like 10:30, 11. And I was like, man, dude, like taste sucked. Like I need to get a fucking buzz, man. Like I need to chill out before I go to sleep. So, and this was in January, so it was like so fucking cold when I was back. I think it was like shit, dude. It might have been like 20 degrees that night or something.
Oh my
I was like,
God.
well, fuck, man. I already had like my PJs on and shit. I was like, I'm not fucking going outside. Like that sucks. It's way too fucking cold. So I was like, well, let me like fucking teenage this shit, and I'll just like go in the bathroom and I'll like blow my smoke up into the like bathroom vent and like have it like go out the fucking thing or whatever.
You're fucking kidding me. Okay,
Yeah.
I got one for this. You keep going.
So I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. Like, and whatever, like, obviously, like I know that my grandmother caught my dad and uncle's smoking probably and shit when they were young and everything. So I feel pretty confident that she knows like what it smells like, but she doesn't like, I don't even know if my grandmother knows that I smoke pot, but I don't think she like, you know, whatever. It's not like something I'm talking to my grandmother about really, but
right.
So anyway, yeah, I'm in the bathroom blowing smoke up into the vent, and I get done like smoking this bowl. I come out, turn the TV on, I sit down like watching TV, and all of a sudden I hear walking upstairs, and I'm like, oh, you know, she's probably just like getting up to go to the bathroom or whatever, because she sits up and which is hilarious. My grandmother's like addicted to YouTube, so she just like watches YouTube like fucking constantly. It's like I always was like, for years was like, you need to get on the internet and then like you can like do cool shit and I can like email you and stuff. And she's like, oh, I don't understand all that stuff. I'm not getting into that. I'm too old now. Well, she's on the internet all the fucking time now. She has a little Kindle that has, you know, you can get on the internet on her Kindle. And yeah, so she's on YouTube constantly. She's always like showing me fucking viral videos, that shit that I saw like a year and a half ago. She's like, oh, check this out. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. I remember that from like 2 years ago. So she's like walking around, and all of a sudden the upstairs door opens up, and I was like, oh my God, what? I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like the fucking bathroom like reeks of pot, and she's gonna like come down here and be like, what are you doing? You want to play Scrabble? Like, what's going on? So she yells down. She's like, Jonathan, are you down there? I'm like, yes, I'm down here. And she's like, hey, don't go outside right now. I'm like, why? I was like, why would not go outside? It's like 20 degrees outside. She's like, don't go outside. I just wanted to warn you. There's a skunk out there.
I knew that's where it was going.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, so of course. And then what's crazy is my very first thought, as soon as she said that, was like, oh my God. So I got to thinking about it. I was like, oh yeah, like that vent where the downstairs bathroom is, like the vent for that probably goes right up through the wall, like in her bedroom, like out to the roof. So she definitely like smelled that like so strong. And so I was like, oh, okay, you know, like I won't go outside or whatever. Like, thanks for letting me know. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm fucking terrible. Like, I'm like the fucking worst grandson ever. I'm like smoking pot in my fucking grandmother's house, and like this is awful.
That is awesome.
Like grown ass man, like I don't even want to go outside and be fucking cold, so I like smoke in the house. So anyway, story was too funny. So the next day I told Dad that happened. And he fucking loved that shit. He just thought that was like the funniest thing ever. So then what makes the story even better though? So I tell Dad about it, and he's like, what the fuck's wrong with you? He's like, why would you fucking do that? He's like, why don't you just like go outside? I'm like, well, because it's fucking, he's like, oh, you're a fucking pussy. He's like, so the next day I I'm at my grandmother's house, and my phone rings, and I look down, and it's one of my dad's friends from, like, I think I mentioned in the one podcast where I was saying about like how my house growing up was like the party house and stuff. And so one of my dad's really good friends from high school, they're still friends and stuff. This guy named Doug, and Doug and I text every once in a while. And so he calls me, and I'm like, whoa, that's weird. He's calling me. So I was like, I better make sure like nothing's wrong or something. So I answered, and he's like, hey, motherfucker. He's like, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, what's up? I was like, well, cool to hear from you. I was like, you know, he's like, yeah, I know you're back visiting. And he's like, I just wanted to touch base with you, see what you're doing. I was like, oh yeah, just been like traveling around. He's like, no. He's like, I mean, I want to touch base about what you're doing. He's like, I heard you're fucking smoking pot in your grandmother's bathroom. So I'm like, God damn it. So my fucking dad like fucking called and like ratted me out to his friend to like, because he just thought that story was too funny. So I'm like, anyway, cool. Like now, like that's gonna fucking get around, and everybody's gonna fucking bring that shit up all the time about smoking pot at my grandmother's house. But yeah, anyway,
That's awesome.
So that's
so
that.
my return volley story is this. My mom flew in, I guess, 2 years ago, and Cooper had just come back from senior week, and he'd taken all of his stuff upstairs, his bags and stuff, and I got an air mattress. So I'm blowing up the air mattress and I'm laying down trying to get comfortable. And I keep hearing this talking, but it's coming from outside. It's not inside, it's outside. And so finally I get up and I kind of walk and I get to the side door and I'm like, fuck, I can hear it, but I can't see anybody. Open the door. And I look up at the fucking attic of my house, and there is Gavin hanging out the fucking window with a bong, smoking, because they're not allowed to smoke in the house. And I busted him. And I'm like, I went fucking ballistic. My mom was like, I kind of figured something went wrong because I'm fucking screaming my lungs out at him, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because it's like, not only are you busted for smoking pot, it's like you decided to do it when your fucking grandmother's visiting.
Exactly. And I mean, we joke about it. She's bought him lighters and shit.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, should I feel bad about this? I'm like, don't worry about it. I was like, they're going to do it anyway. Yeah. You're just, once again. But I was like, those motherfuckers. I'm pretty sure we had already established the pot shed. Anyway, I fucking went ballistic and I started screaming, and the boys are on strike system right now because they're old enough that if they do shit that pisses me off, I can kick them the fuck out of the house. So they both earned their first strike that night because I was just irritated because once again, I'd given them a fucking place to go.
Yeah.
But they couldn't go there. And I don't know if they were trying to be nice and not go there because I was downstairs and I would have heard them, but I hear them anyway because the fucking gate to the pot shed is right beside my head. So I hear them go in and out no matter what.
All right. Well, can I play devil's advocate in the situation a tiny bit?
Oh, sure.
Because I'm not going to fully defend them, but maybe their thought was that if we go out to the pot shed, when we come back in the house, we're going to reek of pot if we walk through, and then grandma will smell it. Or if we just stay up in the attic, we'll like blow it outside and then just go to bed.
No way. They're not that fucking considerate. No, not at all.
I mean, I was just trying to maybe get them knocked down to a half strike instead of a full strike. No, you're not getting them knocked fuck down. They're getting their strikes.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers, it's another internet failure.
So are we on now to topic of the day? Or do you have another thing that you wanted to?
Yeah, so yes and no. So this is separate, but the same. This will lead into like kind of connecting from last week. So I got a text from Scott yesterday, and I don't know if you know this or not, but Hagerstown is getting a skate park.
No, I did not know that. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and it's already like under construction. He sent me a picture yesterday of like the pool that they're putting in.
Where's it at?
I think it's at the fairgrounds.
Wow, that's super awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, finally.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Forever. Did you ever skate at the skate park at the fairgrounds when it was like the Eastern Grind skate park?
No, I didn't.
But you knew about that though? I
actually don't know if I did.
So
is that when they had the bike path, the BMX path?
No, this is way before that. This is like early 90s.
Oh shit, yeah, I didn't know that.
Okay, so the guy, do you remember that skate shop in Boonesboro called the Rad House?
No, didn't exist.
Okay, so that was like maybe around for 5-6 years. I don't know, something like that. But the guy who ran the Rad House, he's the guy who started the Eastern Grind skate park at the fairgrounds. And it was just one of those old warehouses out there, and it had a bunch of like wooden ramps inside and stuff. And some of the ramps were pretty janky, but
right.
I mean, whatever. For like 91, 92, Hagerstown had a skate park, and we went there a lot. But anyway, yeah. So Hagerstown's getting like an official like concrete skate park. Yeah,
That's fucking sweet.
So yeah, Scott was like, he's like, you'll have to start bringing your board when you come back. I'm like, yeah, and that pool looks sick. It's I couldn't really tell. I don't think it's like a vert bowl, but it looks like maybe the deep end's like around maybe 7 or 8 feet. I think it's like almost like a kidney or clover type pool. I can't remember actually, but
that's badass though.
It has like a whole street course and it has like a pump track and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty big. It looks like he showed me the it's like a bird's eye view plan of like, it's like a 3D model of what they came up with or whatever.
That's crazy. I'd love to. Not that I know of, there isn't a pump track around. I'd love it. Those look fun. Like I've seen videos of them. You said something about them.
Yeah.
I watched some videos. They look fun as shit.
Dude, that's the thing, man. There's so many times where I feel guilty and feel shitty because being out here, I'm just so spoiled. It's like I went from, we grew up where we grew up and like, skating wasn't cool and you couldn't really skate anywhere without getting harassed. And there was like definitely no skate parks. So now I like live somewhere where there's literally like 20 skate parks, like 10 minutes from my house. And I rarely go, like I do sometimes, but
yeah,
this new pump track just opened up maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, like 5 minutes from my house. And I've still never skated it yet. So yeah, it's terrible. I feel awful. Like I feel dumb even saying that out loud. Like when I hear myself say that, I'm like, that's fucking stupid. Like you complained your whole life about not having like cool places to skate. And now you live someplace where you could skate someplace cool every day. And I don't take advantage of it enough.
Yeah. It shit happens.
But anyway, how that kind of ties in is so Curtis and I were texting earlier this week and we were just kind of saying about how, doing the podcast has like jiggled things loose that we maybe hadn't thought about in so long or recall. And it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like, what they call
Are they repressed memories or are they?
Yeah. Well, or repressed memories, or are they even, at least on my point of view, are they even some of the things I'm saying even totally accurate? Because I'll say something and then later that night, I'll kind of start thinking about, oh, I said that this happened. And I'm like, that did happen, but did it happen in the order that I think it happened in? It's like, well, it's like that Mandela effect. Is that what they call that? Where it's like, if enough people like tell a story.
Mandela is a little bit different than that. That's like shit like We Are the Champions. Like some people remember it as Of the World when it ends, and actually, I think if you listen to it now, it just says We Are the Champions. But that one's actually been debunked, and there's actually 2 recordings of We Are the Champions.
Oh.
And depending on which album or where it comes from is whether it says Of the World. Apparently, the more popular one at the time had Of the World, and then I guess when it got recycled, they got rid of the World part.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, so that's kind of not. I'm just experiencing shitty memory then, basically.
No, I forget what that. I know what you're talking about, but no.
Well, so changing gears really quick though, with the Queen reference is, and this could be another thing where I'm just like remembering this, but it's not really true. But I think in Revenge of the Nerds at the end when they like win the championship thing. They win the talent contest and they play We Are the Champions. And I think the version in that they do say Of the World.
Oh my God. We'll have to look at it because I don't remember We Are the Champions in Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah. It's at the very end when they win the talent show, which by the way is like one of the sickest fucking songs ever. That like, I love that part of that movie. They have like their whole thing, like the dude spins around. He's playing like the synth keyboard and stuff.
And Lamar is rapping.
Yeah, totally. Everybody clap your hands. Lambda, 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 and Omega moves.
Omega moves.
Yeah.
Fuck, it's horrible. I've seen that movie way too many times.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so anyway, I was thinking a lot about some of the things that we've been talking about. And I feel like probably 95% of things I've said when it comes to dates and times are like pretty accurate. But the one thing that I did think about that definitely is off, or not even off, it's just something I failed to talk about that popped into my head, is when we were talking about like BMXing and skating and stuff. And hate to burst your bubble.
Oh yeah.
But I do recall that I remember I said that, like, you know, seeing you skate that one day was like really pivotal, and like me like kind of continuing skating. Like I'd already kind of been skating, but not really super in depth yet. But there was another thing that was really instrumental in getting me like more involved in skating that I completely forgot about until after we did that episode. So my aunt is 8 years older than me. And when she when she turned 18, she went to college at Salisbury. And so she was actually dating this guy there who was a skater. And, you know, he was involved with like the Ocean Beach, or not Ocean Beach, Ocean City scene.
Ocean Bowl.
Yeah. I was thinking of Ocean Beach because that's out here. But yeah, so anyway, she was dating this guy, and she had told him, well, my nephew like really likes skateboarding, is like getting into skating. And he actually had a Transworld skateboarding magazine that he gave to her to bring home to give to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I had completely forgotten about this till we did that episode. And I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that. And I remember it was I don't remember what issue it was or anything, but I definitely remember the cover was, do you remember that place out here in California is called the Sadlands? Do you remember Sadlands?
I remember the name.
It was like that place, and I've actually been there. So the original things are taken out now, but they like replaced them with some other stuff. So I skated the new version of Sadlands, but not the like 80s version. But they were like these big, like phallic monolith looking things. They're just kind of, they almost look like upside down teardrops or something. And dudes would skate those. They were like these weird, just like sculptures in this park. It wasn't like a skate park.
Right.
But there's like a lot of famous footage of like Neil Blender skating it and some other people. But anyway, the Transworld that this dude gave me was a cover of Steve Caballero doing like a frontside kick turn at the very top of one of these things. And I
think I remember that.
Yeah, so it was probably like an issue from like 87-ish or so.
Transworld was fucking horrible about, because I had a subscription, and you wouldn't see a fucking magazine for 3 months. Then all of a sudden, within a week, I got 3 issues. Like it would be, they were just like, it was fucking horrible. Like, well, I don't know.
That's from being probably where we lived, probably didn't help with that either.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah. So anyway, that was just something that popped in my head that I seriously forgot about and hadn't thought about in probably like 30 years or something. So yeah, I think I guess based on that, I have to take away a little credit that I gave to you about getting me into skating, because it was
the fuck?
Yeah. So sorry, dude. you were still
shit.
You were still very instrumental, but that magazine was like a big part of it too. So anyway,
then you found Thrasher.
Okay. So good point is that actually, no. So I knew Thrasher existed, and I had a few random issues of Thrasher here and there, but Transworld was always like my main magazine. And the reason why is because, you remember Nibble Quick, the gas station down from my house in Fairplay?
Mm-hmm.
So Nibble Quick got Transworld.
Oh, we used to buy it at the mall, and they got Thrasher and Transworld.
Okay. So this would have been before, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I feel like looking back as a little kid, there's like a lot of shit I didn't like figure out till like later. It's just like, oh, like I was saying before, like, oh, there's like I know my aunt's buying records, but like, where do you even get music? Like, I didn't like know there was record stores. Like, that sounds ridiculous, but it's like, I didn't know. I was like a little kid. So same with like magazines. It's like, oh, there's like like I probably even saw bookstores in the mall, but like didn't like connect that like, oh, I can go in there and find other things other than what I'm just like, I
Right.
just knew I could get transported.
Except for nude pictures in the Marilyn Monroe book.
Well, see, I was really fortunate with porno mags because my uncles had a big box of porno mags up in the shed at the farm. So if I ever wanted to snatch a porno mag, I could just go up
That's
there.
fucking awesome. So I wanted to bring this up. This is a totally off subject thing. What I don't even know. You just said something about your aunt bringing home albums, and then like where do you even get that shit?
Yeah.
So it drives me nuts now that people, and it's an asshole thing, that the kids can be so selective in what they buy because they can listen to it well before they fucking buy it, and they know whether it's good or not. Instead of relying on that cover art, better be fucking spot on that CD or record or cassette tape for me to buy it.
Yeah.
Like as a kid, like there needed to be a hook in it, where now it's like, I listen to it. Oh, it's good. Cause there's shit that I would like, if you saw the cover of like a newer album that might not appeal to you.
Yeah.
But you would need to be led to it somehow instead of like randomly pulling that shit out.
Yeah, no, I think about that a lot actually. And I still do a pretty considerable amount of record shopping when I have the funds available to do so. But I really try my best to still like for example, if I go record shopping, I might be looking for something specific, like, you know, whatever, some new thing came out that I definitely want to pick up. And then there's a record store near my house called Lou's Records, and they have like a pretty good selection of stuff. It's mostly new, but every once in a while they'll get some used stuff in that's pretty good. But when I go there, they actually, they have a section where they have like markdown LPs, like stuff that's just set on the shelf for X amount of time. And it's broken down pretty cool, like by genre and stuff. So typically what I'll do is if I go and they have the thing specific that I was looking for, I'll get that. And then I'll always try to buy like one more thing that I don't know what it is. Cause I like exactly what you were just saying. I personally miss, cause I'm certainly guilty of what you just described. Like like if someone's like, hey, check this band out, and I'll listen to it and be like, oh, thank God I fucking listened to this before I bought something of theirs, because they're fucking terrible. Yeah. So that's cool. But like, yeah, there's a part of me that still does like the mystery of buying something based on artwork. And I don't know, like as an adult, it's like, it kind of sucks to buy something and you hate it, because then you're like stuck with it and you're like wasted $15-20 or whatever. But I don't know. I'm willing to take that gamble because I do enjoy, you know, for every 10 shitty records you may buy on chance, there's that one that just like you don't take out of rotation for like a year or two or something. Right.
You find gold every once in a while.
Yeah. So I love that, finding gold on occasion. But yeah, kids just don't understand the pain. Well, like think about, I was like, a perfect example is like, if you could have heard that Black Flag Family Man before you bought it, you might not have bought that.
I like Pettibone's artwork, but would I have bought that? No.
Yeah, the artwork got you, but the music, not so much.
So this drives me nuts. This is another one. And I think we've talked about this before. It's like, name me here. How do I want to say this? Like, so it always drove me nuts that Iron Maiden had the coolest fucking artwork.
Gene's already mad.
and they were the sissiest sounding metal it could possibly be. He sounded like he had his nuts in a fucking anvil, and he's getting punched in them because he was so high in falsetto. And it was like all their imagery was so cool, and they were just like, ah! And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? Where like
Gene is virtually fighting me right now.
Like when you see Rain and Blood and you see the fucking Depths of Hell and you listen to Rain and Blood, you're like, yes, those work together. That is a family.
Yeah.
Where Iron Maiden, I see Eddie and then I hear the shit and I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can. Okay, so great thing to bring up because I can personally side with both of you on this. Like I'm bringing Gene in because I know he's like fucking pissed right now at you, but which he already knows this about you anyway. But
yeah, I know. Everybody who knows me knows that I am not a Maiden fan.
So
and there's fucking treachery with those bastards.
I kind of can be in like both camps on this point of view because I definitely was a late bloomer on Maiden. So when I was like, you know, getting into punk and hardcore and metal and stuff, I don't remember who, but someone let me listen to Iron Maiden. And at the time I was like, this is fucking trash. Like, what is this? Like, and I had the exact same thought of you as you. It's like, dude, their fucking artwork is like so killer, no pun intended. And they like the music. It's like, what, this is some like fucking like castle storming fucking Renaissance music. Like, what the fuck is this?
Exactly. No, you're walking around the fucking carnival and all you see is like tapestries and random shit with Iron Maiden on
like
it. And you're
the Coke mirrors. You remember the Coke mirrors?
Yeah. And they're like, we are badass. And you listen to them, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
This is not badass.
Yeah, I was in the this is not badass. Sorry, yeah, I was in the not badass camp for a really long time. And you know, admittedly, I never liked them and I gave them multiple tries over the years and I was just like, I can't fucking do this. Like it's funny to think about now because of how much I love them now. But where to really date my late bloomerness of Iron Maiden was that I didn't really get into them until like 2000.
I believe you.
And when they put out, so Dickinson left and then they got that other guy to sing. And then Dickinson came back in like 2000 and they put out that new record with him, Brave New World. And I don't know. It was weird. I had this, and Gene was definitely like, always like, dude, like, can't believe you don't like Maiden. Like, if you like this band, you like this band, you'll love Maiden. So like Gene was like, not like peer pressuring about it, but he was just like, dude, like, I think you would really like him if you give him more of a chance. And so when that record came out, I was like, I'm gonna buy that because I've never bought a Maiden record. So I want to get it and just really give it a fair listen. And I got it. And that really was the turning point for me. And then I love that record. I still really like that record a lot. And from there, I did go back. And it's funny because there's going to be multiple Sam's Club tie-ins on this podcast. So one of my friends I worked with at Sam's Club, this dude named Dave, different Dave, he was super in
fourth Dave.
Yeah, fourth Dave. He was super into Iron Maiden. And it's funny because anyone who's like really, really into Iron Maiden is offended if you don't like Maiden. So he was always like, dude, like, I can't believe with like all the shit you like that you don't like Iron Maiden. He's like, that's like the baseline of like everything you listen to. And in my mind, I was kind of like, this is sort of like that whole Ramones scenario where it's like, I like the bands that sound like the Ramones, but are like better than the Ramones. Right. So I guess that's kind of how I thought of like Iron Maiden. It's like, it was like dated like rock that just like it didn't have an edge to it or something. But anyway, so when I went back, I was like, oh, I've been like wrong for a long time. And like, you know, I don't know, maybe my taste had changed and I was open to like more things at that time. But yeah, so like I love Maiden now. And like now when I look at the whole point of that is that like now when I look at the artwork, I'm like, oh yeah, like now it fucking makes sense to me 100%. It's like the music and the artwork completely aligns for me.
You smoke too much dope out there.
I don't think that's what it is because I had this epiphany way before I got into smoking pot all the time.
So I was always, and I'm always, and once again, Gene, I can attest to this, is like I can always pick like a weird band and fall in love with them, and they're the only band in like that genre that I'll fall in love with. Like Cradle Filth, fucking love, but any of that other shit around it, don't give a fuck about it. Like it is like there's just this like
Well,
don't
Cradle
know.
of Filth is fucking badass, so
And it's just weird. And their imagery matches, once again, that matches.
yeah.
Maiden, no.
Yeah,
But
I do. I see both sides of it.
But like what you were saying with discovering a band, because I was never like into Motorhead, and then there was one that came out like mid 2000s that I still listen to a lot of Motorhead that is fucking just awesome. And I have a shit ton of respect for them, and like those guys are they're awesome. But it was never like I just wasn't into it.
Yeah.
But like a ladder, I got into it and fucking love them. But it's definitely, once again, their imagery matches as well.
That's what I was just going to say. It's like their imagery definitely matches. I do have to agree with you. I would say that, like I said, I'm definitely Camp Iron Maiden 100% now and thinking their artwork matches. Like it does make sense to me, but I do agree that out of maybe all the bands we've referenced just now, they're probably the band whose imagery matches least with the music than, like, let's say a Slayer, Metallica, Motorhead, Cradle of Filth, Black Sabbath, like all those types of bands, their like artwork always like was, aligned with the music perfectly. Like Maiden, you would maybe expect it to be a little like more aggressive.
So this we'll actually tie this shit into a Potty Mouth Records or whatever Fuzzy Bunny thing, because at work, my boss and I showed her the inside of the Craven Moorhead's CD, where we'd done like that really elegant font and shit, and it was just so out of left field.
Mm-hmm.
And what's sad is I fucking love that. Like, as the further I can get away with what I'm supposed to look like, I'm in. Like it's funny because I was definitely like went out of my way to make sure that we pushed a different message than we sang about.
Yeah, well, and I think in that respect, it's easier, to do that because you already know what we sound like. So you're coming at the artwork with like a biased outlook, as opposed to like the music you want to personally listen to. You're expecting the artwork.
Oh
to
yeah,
match.
I'd be pissed. Oh, Gas Huffer, the one with the kitten on it. That's fucking.
Yeah, you
would have no clue that how fucking awesome that album is with a little fucking kitten on it.
Well, and I guess I never even really thought about it in such detail before, but I mean, I think the artwork that you did do for all the Craven Moorhead stuff, it really did. I think it really did make it have like a certain vibe, because if it would have, there's like so many different ways we could have went with the artwork. Like if it would have been like, if the artwork would have aligned more with what we were doing musically, I think we would have been a totally different band. Like I think like you sort of adopting like the sort of funny, friendly superhero vibe, maybe like tamed down the aggressiveness of how like ridiculous like the lyrics were and stuff.
Maybe that's actually probably true.
Yeah, like if we would have had a cover of like, some like black and white line art drawing of like some Mohawk dude picking his nose and flicking off the camera or something, like that would have been like a whole different thing.
Yeah, you're right. It's fucking funny.
So I just never even like thought about it that much, but yeah, there's something to that. But
I'm trying to think of other albums that have like the fucked up cover that doesn't match the product. We'll save it for another, or we'll come back to this next week.
Well, I mean, God, there's a ton. I can't really think of anything right off the top of my head, but there's surely.
Don't call me Shirley.
Shirley MacLaine. Okay, well, so I guess tying into the sort of thinking about things in more detail after the fact, the one other thing I need to correct on, which will sort of lead into the topic of today, is that I feel like there's a bunch of times when I was referencing when I was playing in lawn dart, being in 10th grade, And I'm pretty sure I actually was in 11th grade. Not that that's like a crucial detail, but it sort of kind of is, because with the things I'm going to talk about today, that kind of matters.
So let me ask you this. When did you break your arm?
That would have been 10th grade. Or actually maybe 9th grade. It might have been 9th grade, actually. I think it was 9th. See, here we go.
Yeah.
I think 9th grade.
Because I just wonder if that was a transition from you leaving lawn dart.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I'd have to think about that. No, because I definitely, my arm was broken, healed long before I was playing with you guys.
I'm just trying to save face.
Yeah.
Not look like a douchebag.
No, but definitely I was playing in lawn dart in 11th grade. And the reason why I know that is because, and I doubt we're ever going to probably get Dave to be on. Like, I'm hoping we can get him to be on one day. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get him as a guest or not. But Dave is way, I mean, I think I'm pretty good about remembering shit, but he's like the king of that. Like, he remembers the most mundane, crazy details that I'm just like, dude, I remember crazy shit. Like, how did you fucking remember that? So it would be nice to have him to sort of confirm some things. I mean, I could always text him and just like ask him some stuff, but
bring him on, sister.
It's time for an official Potty Mouth Podcast potty break.
All right, cool. So I guess back from break.
Okay, I'm going to stop you because I just saw one pop up. Is this, do they or don't they? Kiss. Do they match their imagery, or are they what? How do you want to say it? A false sale.
Oh. Okay, first of all, I love this game, and I think like we should do like a whole episode on these.
I think so too. I think we need to come up and you guys send us shit. Send it to whatever, the Potty Mouth Records at Gmail, and give us this or that.
Yeah, Kiss. That's a good one. So,
okay, I'll tell you why I brought it up, and so maybe you can think about it a little bit more.
Yeah,
Amanda got me this Badass Destroyer T-shirt.
Okay.
And I remember as a kid having the Destroyer belt buckle where they're coming up over the lava, like looking all fucking cool. And
yeah,
so like I look at that after we had the Iron Maiden run.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk about another iconic band. Do they do that? I think
that Kiss and Iron Maiden are maybe similar in that I think Kiss pulls it off maybe better than Iron Maiden, as far as I think Kiss maybe matches the music, their imagery matches the music better. And I would say that partially that could be because of them being from the 70s, maybe the recording style and techniques, maybe like the way that, because I don't know if you've ever tried to learn a Kiss song, but most of Kiss's songs are like, they're pretty simple. And I think that the recording of them really lended to them sort of like having like a sound that was unique, even though they're pretty much 3-chord punk songs, just like played in like a rock way. I don't know. I think that their imagery fits the music really well. I still kind of agree with you. I don't think this anymore, but I do agree that at one point in time, I did think that Iron Maiden's artwork was way too cool for their music. Like they should have, I don't even know like what I think they should have sounded like, but I definitely think it should have been like heavier. And to defend them, this isn't even defending Maiden, but
look, I put you in such a quandary because you don't know which way to fucking go on this.
Well, it's like I was saying earlier, I totally agree with you though. It's like, I'm in both sides of that perspective, because the problem with Iron Maiden is that I think that on their recordings, they played everything just a little bit too slow. everything, like the BPMs on all their records are just a little bit like, let's say if maybe like they're recording all their shit at like 130 beats per minute, like all their studio records should have been like 138 or like 140. It's like everything's just like a notch away from being like cool and over the edge, like on speed. It's like they somehow, like maybe when they were like writing the songs, they were like more sped up, and then they were in that like, we have producers and shit telling us, oh,
and
we
that's
need to
what
make.
I was wondering. Do you think the producer stepped in and was like, yeah, you guys got to slow that down if we're going to get on the radio? Which back in the day, that was the target, is to get on some sort of fucking radio. Did the producer go, yeah, you guys need to dial it back a little bit, like speed wise?
Yeah, I there might be a component to that. I would not be surprised, because like, for example, if you look at the song like Aces High, which is probably like, that's one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs. It's just like, it's fast, it's right out of the gates, it's aggressive. But even that song, like if you were to take that song and speed it up like by 5 beats per minute, that goes from being what the song that it is, which is still rad, to being like Motorhead-ish and matching the artwork way better.
Right. Yeah, you know what? I didn't think about that, because I always go back and blame the vocals, but the music wasn't there either for me.
No, the music's slow on all that stuff. Like if you listen to the live shit, like I tend not so much anymore. I do like their studio records just as much, but I definitely was listening to a lot more live Maiden when I very first got into them. And that was actually, I think, probably pretty critical in me sort of like coming over to the Maiden camp, and like, oh, like live, they really kind of kick ass. They like speed everything up, and it's like got a lot of energy. But I just think those studio albums don't like have that energy.
Right.
It's like they could, like if those recordings would have been recorded more in like a traditional punk rock kind of way, I think they probably wouldn't have been as successful, but I think the records would have been a lot more aggressive and like hard hitting.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you just wonder about like how much like producers and people get in the record company itself, like how far they push things to get it where it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it with the radio thing. It's like they were probably like, a ton of their songs were probably faster when they wrote them, and they were probably like, hey bro, like this shit's never going to be on the radio unless you like slow this down. And they were probably like, that sucks, but yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, I just wonder how much the labels and like the producers, like, you know, get in there and like, yeah, this is awesome, but what if we slow it down a hair? Well,
this is another whole side trajectory, but just really quick, speaking of like album speeds, for the long, so this is actually pretty funny. The first time that I heard I think it's the Brown Reason to Live, Butthole Surfers. It's the one with like the 3 dudes on the front, like I know. The profile. Is that the right one? Brown Reason to Live. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first, and it's really funny because they're pretty notorious for a lot of their earlier records, like the Touch and Go era stuff. They're full length albums, but they were cut at 45 speed. So, like that record in particular, the first time I listened to that, I had, maybe I have the speeds backwards, but anyway, the first time I listened to it, I had it on the wrong speed. And I listened to that record like multiple times for like a while at that speed, thinking like that's what that was. And I was like, dude, this is like so sick. It's like, this is like, because the first thing I ever heard from them was Locust Abortion Technician. So then I kind of like, that was my like my baseline for them.
That sucks for you.
No, that's my favorite one.
Really? I like, there's shit on that one I love. Like that's actually, it's a really good fucking album, but like another Man's Sack was the one that was the first one I got.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're all great, but yeah, Locust Abortion was for me, that's like the pinnacle for me of like their greatness. But then, so yeah, Brown Reason to Live, Wrong Speed, listen to it like that for a while. And then I don't even remember what happened, but I definitely one day, maybe I put it on and the speed was already like set to whatever it was. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. And then I realized, holy fuck, I've been listening to this on the wrong speed for like a while.
That is funny.
Yeah. And now that record, it's funny because that record's almost like 2 records for me now. Like I can put it on, and it's just sort of like whatever mood I'm in, I can put it on 33 or 45 and I can enjoy it because my first memory is of it being the wrong speed. And like, I like knew those songs as that speed. So now it's funny when I put that on, it's like, sometimes I may have been listening to something on 33 and I'll put it on. And it's like, oh, cool. I'm getting like version 1 today or whatever.
Yeah. It must've been recorded for 45 or pressed as a 40, because it's a short album.
Yeah, it is.
So I bet you it was pressed as a 45 at 45 and you played it on 33.
Yeah,
now I want to go do that.
Because it's definitely more like stoner rock at 33, like for sure.
Yeah,
like, like the song, oh shit, it's whatever the first song on starts off side 2. I can't think right now. But anyway, that song is just like gonna blow your mind at 33. So that's a funny speed story. But back to the original train of focus is that so I know we kind of had talked about, we weren't like so worried about staying chronological with everything, but I think just everything that you talked about at the last episode was sort of like your sort of core origin story, I would say, like leading up to Lawn Dart. And I don't know, I just like where we left off, I kind of thought it might be cool for me to like just do the same for this episode. Just so I think then that gets us to a good foundation of where we're kind of both coming from, and then we can sort of go like jump around at that point. But so
jump up and get down.
Jump up. I met Dave, Colonel Peckerwood. I met him in 10th grade. Like I said, I'd like to have him on eventually to confirm some stuff, but I'm pretty sure that we had algebra together in 10th grade. I had algebra my freshman year, but I barely passed, and I didn't want to move on without like having a better understanding of it. So I took it again in 10th grade, and Dave was in my class. And Dave was I didn't know Dave at all. Like we had been going to school together since 6th grade at this point, but we never had any classes. Like I knew who Dave was and I saw him around school and whatever, but Dave was a jock basically. Like Dave was like super into football.
That is so funny.
He was like a huge Redskins fan. Like, yeah, he was like big into football and stuff, and he played in the school band. So he was just like a football band guy. And I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really know him. So we had this class together, and we would just he sat near me, either behind me or beside me. And we would just, kind of chit chat a little bit, and I'd be wearing punk rock shirts, and he was into music. So that was, where we kind of bonded, is we were both into music, and he was so here's a cool Hagerstown reference for anybody that remembers this band. You probably do, I'm guessing, but the band Epitaph. Do you remember Epitaph?
Yes, it sounds familiar. I can't remember who's in it, but yes.
Okay, well, I don't remember exactly which brother was the singer in the band, but it was Wayne and Todd Klein. Do you remember those guys? They would have probably been your age, I think, or one of them would have been your age.
No,
they were like Hesher dudes in high school. They were sort of like feathered hair, comb in the pocket, jean jacket guys. But anyway, the one brother, he sang in Epitaph. And so Dave, those guys lived over in Halfway Park.
Right.
And Dave was lived like a couple houses down from those guys. So he was really good friends with those dudes. And they were into like a lot of Christian metal. Like they were like striper guys.
Was Ronnie Marlin in this band?
Okay, so I was going to say that like this will be our first episode where we reference Ronnie Marlin, aka Nasty Suicide. So Ronnie Marlin was the bass player of Epitaph.
Yes.
And quick side story, I was terrified of Ronnie Marlin / Nasty Suicide. Is that Coop?
Yeah.
What's up, dude?
He said, "What's up?"
I was terrified of Nasty Suicide when I was a kid. Like I would actually be, so my grandmother would go to the mall and she'd be like, do you want to go to the mall with me? Because she'd give me a bunch of quarters to go to timeout. So I'd go to timeout and play video games while she was shopping. And I was always terrified to walk around the mall because I knew Nasty Suicide like combed the mall. And I was fucking scared to death of him because I was just like, whoa, he's like this like big, like scary heavy metal dude.
Oh my God.
And like I heard he used to like fight people and stuff. So I was like terrified of that dude. And I actually have this memory of like walking through the mall and seeing him and like turning around and going the other way. Cause this was like,
the fuck off.
No, I swear to God. Yeah. Cause this is like in the era where, where it's like the whole, like, you got a fucking eye problem dudes were around, like that shit.
Yeah.
So I was always scared of getting into you got a fucking eye problem scenario with him. So anytime I would see him coming, I'd like turn and like go the opposite way. And I was little. I mean, I'm talking like I was probably 11 or 12 at this point. So like I'd consider that a little kid. And when someone's like older and like looks like someone you've never seen, he looked fucking scary to a little kid. And he drove that crazy white van and stuff. Yes. See, you have a different perspective because you were older. You were just like, you were probably like, this guy's a fucking dork. But I was like scared of him. So anyway, he played in that band. So Dave was friends with those guys. At least he was with the Klein brothers. I'm not sure how well he knew Ronnie at that point. But Rick Hoover, you probably remember Rick Hoover.
I remember the name. Yeah.
Rick Hoover was another Striper kid. He played drums for them. And Rick was really cool. I actually like knew Rick pretty well because he lived up the street from a friend of mine I used to skateboard with. And he was like the first person I knew who had like a real drum kit. He had like a huge like double bass drum kit.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. He was like super into Striper. He had his drum kit painted yellow and black. He had some like old car, like some old black car. It was almost kind of like the Death Proof car.
Right.
And it was painted yellow and black.
Really?
Yeah.
Where the fuck was I?
Yeah, those dudes were like
that.
Yeah, those dudes were super into Striper. And
if you can be.
Yeah, if you can be. So Dave, I remember one of the things that sort of like I think maybe even got Dave and I talking is like I always thought it was weird that he was sort of like band geek football guy, but he wore like a sleeveless denim vest. And he had a giant Striper back patch on his denim vest. Yeah, it was like a to hell with the devil back patch, which I actually have now because
that is awesome.
Yeah, because he like went through his phase where he was like not denouncing, but he was like, yeah, I'm like into cooler shit now. And like listening to Striper is like kind of stupid. And I remember he like took off his Striper back patch and somehow that ended up coming into rotation in the Bombthreat like gag bag, like our costume bag. So anyway, I ended up taking that Striper back patch up because I always just wanted to have that as a memento. It's like, motherfucker, I remember where you came from. Like, bring up the Striper back patch from time to time.
Never forget, bitches.
Yeah, never forget. So Dave was coming from like definitely like a more like rock angle, like Metallica, Striper,
Sister
Megadeth,
Sledge.
That kind. Well, who's that? What did you say?
I said Sister Sledge.
Sister Sledge. So he was sort of in that realm. So we were sort of clicking on music because I was kind of like, oh, well, I know some of the bands you listen to, but like he didn't know anything that I was listening to. So I think he was very interested in learning more about all that kind of stuff. And this was definitely like straight edge era. Like I think Aversion was still playing.
Woohoo!
And I was definitely full bore, like Aversion X was like the coolest thing ever. And like straight edge shit was fucking awesome. And that whole thing, like riding that wave. And I would like talk to Dave about all that stuff. Like, well, I listen to these, like this band Minor Threat. And then there's like, whatever, Uniform Choice, like shit like that. So he had never heard of any of this stuff. So we just kind of bonded over that. And then one thing led to another. We kind of started hanging out outside of school. I started going over to his house and I'd bring music and we'd like, I'd play shit for him and
masturbate each other.
well, we wouldn't do that, but that was later. That wasn't at first.
Oh shit.
But yeah, so we would, we'd go to the mall and we'd like look at music together and be like, oh,
Right.
this looks cool. Or like this, like we kind of do that same thing you were talking about where someone would buy something, someone else would buy something, we'd switch and like dub shit. So that went on for a while.
Yes,
and,
Lars, we used to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, Lars.
How the fuck do you think you got popular?
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's like that whole Napster shit. It's like, bro, you're fucking able to complain about Napster because of exactly what tape trading like did for you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fucking moron.
So
anyway, I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. So I think the first band that we both sort of found together that we clicked on was Sepultura. And I think he might have bought Beneath the Remains and I bought Arise. And I remember when we got those, we were just like, oh man, like I think we both, like I was sort of in like the punk hardcore mindset. I was listening to some metal at that point, but not like a lot. And then he was more like metal oriented. And then it was like Sepultura was like the crossover we like both needed. Like,
Right.
I think Sepultura kind of bridged for him. Like that helped him to see like the side of thrash that sort of maybe some punk turned into thrash. And then for me, I was like, oh, like I was trying to find more aggressive shit that was like not Metallica kind of stuff. And Sepultura came in. I was like, oh, like, okay. Then we were both in that mindset. And I remember bringing my guitar over to his house on the weekends. And we were both like trying to not really even like learn Sepultura songs, but just, I don't know. We were just like, this band is the shit. And we were just all about them. And then that sort of led into us just being more hyped on music. And I had been playing more. And then I think at that point, that whole year kind of went on and my aunt had a drum kit. My aunt who like got me into acoustic guitar, she had a drum kit and she let me borrow her drums. And this was down at my grandmother's house. And I had these drums set up and I never played drums before. I didn't even know how to play them, but Dave had mentioned that like he had messed around with drums in the band, just, in between, because he played trumpet, I think.
Yes.
And
confirm that.
Yeah, exactly. So he had messed with drums. So he came over one day and like he actually figured out drums very quickly. I was like, whoa, dude, like you actually can like play drums. Like he's like, yeah, it's like he kind of could play some beats. And I had this was like my second electric guitar I had at the time. I don't know if you remember this or not, but I had that little like mini Michael Schenker V. And I ended up like giving it to Darv.
I think I do remember that.
Yeah, it was almost like a travel guitar size. But it was like, looked like Michael Schenker's guitar. It was like that black and white, like Explorer V ripoff.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I had that guitar and I had a little Gorilla amp and we sat up at my grandmother's house and we were like, in addition to being into Sepultura, we were both kind of simultaneously into the Meatmen. Because he like, he like loved I like got him into the Meatmen. So, and we were also really into MOD at the time, like the first MOD.
Yes, I
record.
do remember you guys being into,
Yeah. So I think like that band was like a good like crossover for him as well, because they were sort of still like metal, but bridging that gap into like a more punk lyrical sort of thing. So yeah. And I actually have a boombox recording of Dave and I's very, very, very first jam session together.
That is fucking crazy.
Yeah. So we did a cover of Tooling for Anus by the Meatmen, because I had learned how to play that on guitar. And we also, I think we played Bubble Butt by MOD, because that was actually like a drum beat he could do, because it was dun 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 dun. So yeah, so that was sort of like that is the initial start of like us kind of like jamming together. And then fast forward a few months would have been when I got into Lawn Dart, and Dave also was playing in the first incarnation of Lawn Dart, playing trumpet. But I think that you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think when I started playing bass and lawn dart, it was just me at first. And then at some point in practice, there was discussion about somebody wanting to add trumpet. And I was like, well, my friend Dave plays trumpet in the school band. And so I think maybe the first, I don't know, month or two that I was just coming to practice. And then after that, he started to come a few times. And I do also have boombox recordings of lawn dart practices with Dave and I in the band.
Oh, you do? Ooh.
Yeah. I thought about putting those up, but I don't know. They're kind of rough. I mean, actually the boombox recording itself isn't too bad, but it's just, I don't even think there's really like full songs. It's maybe just like playing riffs of songs and like practicing. I'd have to go back and listen to it, but it's just cool it even exists, because it's like, for me personally, it's just like, that's actual proof that I was in the band, basically. Cause
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Like people are going to fucking argue it.
Well, right. But I don't know. Just for me personally, it was just cool that, that's documented at least in some form.
Oh my Lord.
But then anyway, yeah, we both ended up like not being in lawn dart. And that sort of, I think we were maybe both sort of in the mindset of like, we want to definitely keep doing music. And we just had to sort of start doing something on our own, kind of figure it out. So simultaneously, we were in 11th grade at the time. It was my 11th grade art class. And I had class with this kid named Doug. And Doug was actually huge into death metal. And he was actually a couple of years younger than Dave and I. I think he might have been a freshman when we were juniors. But he was into all kinds of shit that I'd never heard before. Like he's kind of who got me into Napalm Death. He was into like Obituary, like all that early like earache stuff, like Suffocation, Grave, just like all those types. Like I know shit that you don't like or are familiar with, but so he was, and so our teacher was cool. We didn't have Miss Hoop. We actually had a different art teacher. I never had Miss Hoop.
That is your loss. Sucker.
Yeah. So I definitely always, and what's funny, side story, I remember thinking that this is so stupid. You're going to make fun of me for this, but there's definitely it was critical to have Miss Hoop as a teacher. I was like, if you were like a punk metalhead kid at Williamsport, like it was like a rite of passage. You had to have Miss Hoop. So I think it was my senior year where I wanted to have art class with her, and something worked out where I wasn't able to get in her class. And I remember actually being super bummed. So I felt like I wasn't part of the club. Like I didn't get to be in like the Miss Hoop club.
Awesome, dude. She just, she got it or didn't care. And it was just, she was awesome about it. Like we could listen to music during class and
yeah, totally. So I kind of felt like I missed out on that, but the art teacher I honestly forget her name, but she was actually really cool too. And she definitely let us listen to music. So Doug would bring his boombox in, and he had like seriously like this fuck off boombox. It was like breakdancing style boombox. He would like bring into class, and she was totally cool with it. So we would sit there and listen to like these death metal cassettes in art class. So he really got me into more of, so that again, searching for that more like extreme, like faster, heavier shit. He was bringing that. And I was like, oh, this is fucking cool. So I ended up finding out he played guitar. So I was like, well, my friend Dave kind of plays drums. Like maybe we should try to jam sometime. So we ended up going to this dude's house and jamming. And this is when Dave and I formed our like very first high school band, was with this kid, Doug, and this other kid, Josh. And we were called Convulsion. So we were trying to be like a death metal band. And obviously none of us had the chops or ability to play any kind of death metal shit at all. But we tried our best, and we had like maybe 3 or 4 songs, and I have some boombox recordings of that band as well. And then also simultaneously we were doing this band called Slingshot, which was the same band, but we would switch instruments. And that band was actually really cool. I have a recording of that as well. And it was more like punk style. Mm-hmm. And we actually had some pretty cool songs. And so we were doing those 2 bands simultaneously. we did that off and on for maybe like a year. And then that band morphed into a band called Stitch that we did. And we ended up kicking this kid Josh out of the band because he just like really wasn't cutting it on guitar. And this dude Jeff started singing for us. So I was playing, I can't remember if I was playing guitar or bass in that band, and Doug was playing either bass or guitar. Dave was playing drums. Jeff was singing. And then also simultaneously through skating, Dave and I, that's when this would have been like probably the beginning of our senior year or like middle of senior years when we started Garbage Dog. And we started doing that with our friends Chris and Brad, who were dudes that I skated with. So Dave didn't skate, but Dave used to like hang out with us when we would skate and stuff like that. So we started doing Garbage Dog, and that was when when I first kind of like commandeered the shed at my grandparents to like, for practicing in. Cause I think we lost our practice spot so when we kicked that Josh kid out of the band, we practiced at his house. So it was sort of like a similar version Ryan scenario where we lost our jam spot. So I remember thinking, well, there's this abandoned shed at my grandparents. Like we can maybe just go in there. So we started jamming in there with Garbage Dog. We did the first Garbage Dog recording there just on the boombox. And then this was like getting close to the end of our senior year is when I was already skating with the Enshu brothers, like Eddie and Thaddeus. So we were kind of skating with those guys, and those guys were into music. So that's when we started doing Gazunk, which was like our high school band, our senior year band. So that was Thaddeus / Paul on vocals. Josh French played guitar. I played bass, and Dave played drums. I remember
this one.
Yeah. So we did a demo. We bought a 4-track recorder. We did our demo, and that was like probably the last 3 or 4 months of our senior year. We were doing that band. And we were also still doing that band Stitch at the time. So we were doing those bands simultaneously. And then that led into the infamous graduation party show at my house,
which was fucking awesome.
Yeah. So side story, this guy, Doug, who was in Stitch and Convulsion, I haven't talked to him like probably since high school. And he actually hit me up a couple months back, like out of the blue. He sort of tracked me down social media style. And he's like, hey man, like, I don't even know if you remember me, but like we had a band together in high school. And I was like, of course I remember you, like, whatever, great times and stuff. And he was just asking if I had any recordings or any of that stuff from back in the day. I was like, I actually do. And I haven't sent him anything yet, but he told me, he's like, dude, he's like, I'll have to do a lot of digging to try to find it. But he's like pretty sure he actually has a VHS tape of that graduation party show.
Shut the fuck up. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that is awesome.
So I'm hoping to get a copy of that at some point. So anyway, what was cool about that show is that ended up sort of that show was really critical in a lot of ways. I was thinking about this as I was trying to remember bits and pieces of this story leading up to that. So we were like, okay, we want to have no one was really having like a cool graduation party. So I was like, well, we were doing the band, and like a lot of people in our grade were like stoked on our band and wanting to see us play. And we hadn't really like played a show yet. So I was like, well, let's do a show for graduation party. Like that would be like a cool idea. So we built that stage at my house, and we made flyers. And I don't know, like I feel like in school, I was just like, I wasn't like a popular kid. I wasn't like an unpopular kid. I was just like a middle of the road kid. Like I got along with everybody for the most part, but I definitely wasn't in like a clique per se. So in my mind, I was just like, there's going to be some people show up who sort of like know me from school, but it's not like it's going to be like a lot of people. Well, there was a fuck ton of people that showed up.
Yes, there was.
So that like blew my mind, because I was like, whoa, I didn't realize like anybody cared that much about me in school to like come to this. But So anyways, shit ton of people. Lawn Dart played, Pank played, my band Gazunk played, and Stitch played, my other band. So Stitch like opened the show, and then I think Gazunk played. I remember, and then Lawn Dart played, and I definitely remember that Pank headlined. And the reason why I remember that is because they did their song "Suck My Dick," and that was like the last song that they played. And so my grandparents were there, and so I kind of have to give a little side story. So my grandfather apparently was like super strict with my dad and uncles and my aunt and stuff. Like he was like super like hammer down, like strict ass fucking dad, you know, like typical like 50s, 60s dad, you know, just like no bullshit, like do your fucking chores. He was man of few words. So when I came along, it was like the exact opposite. I'm like first grandchild, and my grandparents like spoiled the shit out of me. Like he never corrected me, never yelled at me. Like my grandfather,
golden child. It's okay.
Full on golden child. Like my grandfather could not do anything wrong in my eyes. And so I remember they were playing "Suck My Dick" and everyone's like slamming, which I remember there being like a sick pit at that show too.
There was a sick pit. Like that's what I remember about that. Like us playing, I'm like, holy fuck, what's going on? Like it was crazy.
Yeah, just like total like high school kids from our school who like had probably never been to a punk show in their life, who like were probably introduced to slamming at that show. Yeah. And I remember fucking shout out to Mike Kidwell, good friend of mine from school. He fucking stage dove off the barn ledge. I don't know if you remember that. So that was fucking sick. Yeah, I'd love to see this video. It'd be so fucking cool. But anyway, so they're playing "Suck My Dick." And I remember my dad freaking out that they were like playing that song, and he like didn't care, but he was worried about my grandfather getting pissed because he was probably having like secondhand PTSD of like, oh, I can't let dad like hear this song.
Oh shit.
Even though it was coming from like my friends and he wouldn't have given a shit. So I remember like they fucking yanked the plug on them. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that because I was talking to your dad, I think, as it was starting to go down, and I was like, I started laughing because I knew what was coming.
Yeah. So dad fucking pulls the cord on fucking Pank and like shut it down. So that was a great night. And so we ended up, Gazunk ended up playing I think we did one more show after. We may have done like 3 shows total. And I know one of the other shows that we did was that following summer, which would have been the summer of 93. We actually played a show with you guys, Lawn Dart, at the Wilson Ruritam building.
Yeah.
So that was like our one sort of like real show we played before we kind of broke up, because we ended up like Josh went off to college, and I don't know, I was still friends with like Paul and Eddie and those guys, but we were just kind of more like skating and stuff and like weren't really doing music. We were jamming a little bit here and there with some other stuff, but nothing serious. And then so at that point, so the whole point of bringing that all up is that I think that was the moment where I had sort of like, that party was like a showcase for me. I always felt like it was like, here's where Dave and I are at musically, and sort of like showing like you guys, like, this is what we're doing. Like, we actually have like kind of like real bands now. Like, we actually kind of like know what we're doing.
Fucking funny. It feels, it's ridiculous, but
which it
I
is.
know what you're saying.
Well, looking back on that, it's like comical to think that, but yeah, it's like, I remember thinking like almost like we may even have had discussions within our bands. Like, we have to like play as good as we can, because like, if we like come off as being like a good band, like we might be able to get shows with like these guys who can like get us like real shows and stuff.
Oh my God. Which is sad that real shows included the Wilson Ruritan.
Yeah, I mean, it's all perspective, right?
But I mean, those by far were some of the best shows like I could think of. Like, those shows were always awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
now for this week's glitch in the internet.
Tell us how it feels to be a pot smoking fucking hippie, douchebag.
Now back to the program.
we were talking about the graduation party, and I was going to go back a little bit because an important tidbit of all this is that my senior year, so the two guys aside from Dave who were in Garbage Dog were our friends Brad and Chris, who were guys I skated with, and they were from Williamsport. And so my friend Brad, he actually knew Jason Murphy kind of before I did. So I knew Jason like from going to shows and stuff like that, but I didn't I like saw him at shows. I didn't like know him yet. But Jason had he had sort of befriended a couple dudes in Williamsport who were skateboarder kids. And so when I was a junior and a senior, we were actually skating with Jason a good bit. He'd actually come into Williamsport on the weekends and skate with us, and sometimes he'd pick us up, and because none of us really drove yet, so he would pick us up and take us to skate spots and stuff like that. So we were kind of hanging out with him and getting exposed to like other music through him. That was stuff I maybe wasn't getting exposed to on my own, or through you guys. But our sort of like the last few months of our senior year, Andy was actually skating with us a lot too. So I think maybe Andy had actually, because I don't know, I would say that Andy was probably a little bit more from like the previous generation of like local skateboarders. Like he was still skating, but I would say he was more in like the Scott kind of era, like with you guys and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know how much you were skating with Andy like back in the day, but so we were skating with him a good bit, and he's the first person I ever saw to like ollie a trash can standing up vertically in person. And that was like a big deal back then. Like,
no shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually have this really distinct memory of us, because we used to skate the church in Williamsport, actually where my like family went to church or still goes to church. It's that one like right before you're going down the hill to go to the bridge.
Yeah, that's where my grandmother goes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, your grandmother goes there too. So we used to have a bunch of fun boxes and like PVC slider rails and stuff, and like hidden in the bushes behind the church. And we'd drag all that stuff out on the weekends and skate it. And this one day, Andy actually had a trash can in the trunk of his car. And I remember he like pulled up and like got this trash can out and set it up. And we were just like, I mean, I guess I had seen people in videos like ollie pretty high at that point. This was like 92, 93. So obviously we knew people could do that, but it's the first time I ever saw that in person. And that was the sickest thing ever. I remember being like, holy fuck. Like I know someone that can like ollie a fucking trash can standing up. Like that's fucking crazy. Cause probably at that time I could definitely like ollie some shit, but nothing like that high.
Oh fuck, dude. Never.
Yeah, that was nuts. So, so Andy and Jason, I'm pretty certain they had actually came out to the farm a couple times to like pick me up or just like hang out and stuff. Cause I think I actually may have had one of my ramps at the time. And they would skate the ramp a little bit. I think that was that period. I can't 100% remember, but I had this like little half pipe for a bit. But they actually knew about like the shed, so that the shed was like a jam room. And I think we may have even gone in there and like kind of like Dave and I and those guys kind of went in there and fucked around a little bit, just like making noise. But anyway, so they like knew the shed existed. So then fast forward to the summer after graduation, where my band Gazunk played that show with Lawn Dart at the Ruritam building. And then we kind of split up. And then I wasn't really doing anything musically. And like pretty much exactly at that same time is when this would have been like the initial formation of Bombthreat. And so a funny story about that is that Bombthreat was actually originally supposed to be a rap band.
Oh shit!
I'm not sure if you ever knew that.
The adventurous Andy A.
Yeah. So
In the
the adventurous Andy A and the Bomb Threat Posse
Yeah,
was like the original idea for that band. And so that was formulated by Andy and Matt, drummer of Bomb Threat. So they had this like funny idea of like starting this band, this like rap band. And you know, it'd be cool to have Matt on eventually too, because he would have to confirm this, because this is actually a part of the Bomb Threat history that I actually don't 100% know. But that would be how, and I've just kind of put two and two together with this over the years, but I think that Matt knew from the graduation party that I had a place to, like, I was a dude who had a place to jam, and that like I played guitar. And I also think that like Andy knew me from skating. And I think like when they were going to do that band, it was a rap band at the time, but then like obviously it quickly shifted to like being a punk band. But I think those guys were like, hey, like we both know this guy and he has like a jam spot and he plays guitar. Like, let's just like see if he wants to play. So those guys had approached me about like jamming with them. So
Right.
they came over, and I think it was pretty much like we quickly figured out like within the first practice is like, and I mean, whatever, I like some rap, but I was never like huge into like rap music too much. I mean, I like some things, but
I would assume that's right about the time whatever the Beastie Boys did the Jesus,
it's like Check Your Head era.
Yeah, I think yeah.
So Andy was big into, well, everybody was, but like Andy was big into Beastie Boys and stuff. So yeah, I think it was just kind of like the mindset of maybe doing something along those lines. And, you know, within the first practice, we were like, okay, well, we know that's not going to happen. So like, let's just do like, you know, and I had some riffs or whatever. So we jammed, and I think we wrote some stuff fairly quickly. I think the first song we wrote was Skate Song, which is on the first Bomb Threat, which is the Spasmatrons from Space, which Andy sings on. And then also, so simultaneously, while we had that first jam and stuff, I think maybe like we kind of realized pretty early, and that would have been my first time jamming with Matt ever. And because Matt actually, because that's it, another point to make would be like Matt wasn't playing drums until that point. He wanted to switch over to playing drums because he was playing guitar and bass mostly. And he hadn't really even like played drums yet. But I think maybe he had jammed at some point with somebody and knew he could play drums.
He played a lot because Heath's drums were always at his house.
Yeah, exactly.
So he had access to them and played a lot, I believe.
Okay.
Is kind of where he started playing.
Gotcha. So he already had some chops like before that. But I think he just kind of maybe, because I remember him telling me that like, you know, I definitely want to concentrate more on drums. So that was sort of his like venture into drums full time. And then where I can tie in a name reference from an episode or two back, is we were talking about Tony Shoemaker. So Tony worked at Sam's Club with Matt and Matt Powell.
Right.
And I think so like Matt and Matt Powell were hanging out a lot at that time. Like they met through Sam's Club, I'm pretty sure. And you know, that they were like partying a lot and stuff. And I think Matt was just like, hey, I'm starting this band with some dudes I know. Like, and I don't even think like Matt Powell played bass. I think like maybe he had a guitar maybe in high school or something, if I remember. Like maybe like him and his
clue.
Yeah, I think him and his brother might have like shared a guitar that they like fucked around with. So he knew enough to fucking play what we were doing. And you know, I think Matt was like, hey, we need a bass player. Would you be interested in trying to jam in this band we're trying to do? And I think Matt Powell was like, yeah, sure. And so he
AKA Dr. Fuck.
Yeah, AKA Dr. Fuck. So Matt Powell ended up coming over and we started jamming, and yeah, I like kind of like the rest is history. I mean, we wrote a bunch of songs fairly quickly, and which ended up becoming the first Bomb Threat release. And that one we just recorded with like I don't know if we did that on the 4-track or it might have been, that might have just been on the boombox, because I think I wasn't really happy with how the Gazunk demo turned out that we did on the 4-track, and I sort of wanted to figure that out better before we used it more. So I think, and I was getting like pretty decent recordings on the boombox, so I think we just did that one on the boombox, and then within a few months, and then we played and so here we can tie back into the Lost episode. So I don't remember the order of the shows. I'd have to look at the flyer to see, but we played, I think, 2 shows with Andy singing, which would have been a Wilson Ruritan show.
Yeah.
Which would have been around Halloween, because I remember, I don't know if you remember this or not, but we had carved a bunch of pumpkins, or somebody had carved pumpkins for that show because it was a Halloween show. I think it may have been us that did that. And we had pumpkins set up around us while we were playing, and they had candles in them. And of course, Andy was always notorious for getting shit-faced at shows and just acting insane. So he was like pretty hammered at that show, and it's like I said, this is the infamous, like the Smashing Pumpkins show. So I like halfway through our set, when we started one of the songs, I remember this, he just yelled out Smashing Pumpkins. 'Cause like, that's sort of like when the band Smashing Pumpkins had sort of like just came out and were like getting like more popular.
Right.
So he like yelled out Smashing Pumpkins, that I think is like a reference to like making fun of them, but he started picking up those pumpkins we had and smashing them inside the Wilson Ruritan building. So the floor got like all super slick from the inside of the pumpkin seeds, and because it's super slippery inside of a pumpkin. Yeah. So that like the floor was just wrecked, and people were like trying to dance and were like sliding all over the place. So Phil could confirm this, but I think I remember like maybe Jason and Phil like sort of co-booked that show or something. But for some reason, I remember Phil like being extra mad about him like smashing those pumpkins. Like he thought it was funny, but he was also like, oh, you fucked the floor up and now we're going to have to clean all this shit up.
Yeah, I was going to say, and we'll have to clean it up.
Yeah. So Phil could confirm or deny that. But anyway, so that we did that show. And I even think I remember at that show being like, like that was funny, but like, I don't, and whatever, like, I was like, I fucking love Andy to death. But at that time I was like, I don't know if I want this to be like every show to be like this. Like, I hope he's not going to be like drunk and like throwing shit all the time. So then I think our next show would have been what would have initially or ended up being like his final show with us, is when we played that Kaiser, West Virginia show with Lawn Dart. So we went up there, played that show, and like, I won't go into all the details. I know we're like time restricted, but I remember telling you about this because you had never heard this before. That was with the Queers. I'm pretty sure the Way Outs played that show too, I think, because they're who would have got Lawn Dart on the show. And then they got us, like you guys got us to come along as well. And I feel like there was another band too, but I can't remember. So anyway, I remember thinking like, this is cool. Like, I knew who the Queers were, but I didn't really know them that well at that point. But I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is our chance to like play with like a cool bit, like our first like real band we get to play with.
Right.
Like, cool. So like I said, you already heard this story, but
keep going. It makes me laugh.
Yeah, we played.
There's a punchline and I love it.
Yeah. So I think we opened, or maybe the Way Outs open, or we opened, I can't remember. So we played our set. And so the other cool tie-in is that, so I wasn't actually playing any music with Dave at this point. So once our high school band sort of stopped playing, like Dave and I were definitely still hanging out all the time, but we like didn't have a band together anymore because our band Stitch also quit playing. So Dave came to the show with us, just like rode along to hang out. And we had been sort of jamming a little bit at practices, like maybe before Andy would show up or after. And Dave was just like a natural in vocals. Like, he just had really good rhythm. He had like really good like pacing and melody with like like just figuring out how to put words into places and stuff. And we just were like dicking around. It was like me and Matt Powell and Matt and Dave, and we like learned how to play this clutch cover. Like we were doing Impetus. So, and we had actually like figured out how to do it pretty well. And then, so we went to this show, we're playing. And I remember like halfway through the set, Andy was just like fucked up again, super drunk. And we had actually planned on having Dave come up and we were going to play this clutch cover at this show, which was weird because we were playing like all of our songs, which were like way more punk. And then we like did this clutch cover. It's like looking back on it, it's like, what a shit show. Like, what were we fucking doing? It was just like, we hadn't like figured out what we were doing yet, really. So Dave comes up like towards the end of the set. We play this clutch song and it like went, I don't know if the crowd was really that into it, but it just went
I bet they were, because like at that time, I know they got big, but like that was like, fucking tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I think so. Like locally is probably tip of the iceberg for that era of them. And I just don't know how many people up in that area knew about them at that point, but maybe they did. But anyway, so we did that cover and it just went really well. And I just remember Dave, that being the first time I really like witnessed him actually getting into like his sort of like Jekyll and Hyde character, where I didn't realize he had such a like frontman persona. It's like when we jammed over the years, it's like Dave was always funny and goofy and stuff, but it was like really the first time seeing him in like a frontman position where he could really express himself and get kind of crazy. And I was just like, whoa, like he's like, I remember like looking over at him, like being shocked, like, whoa, like where's this coming from? Like, I didn't even know he had this side to him, just like completely like mocking like Neil's moves from Clutch and just like doing all this crazy shit. And it went really well. I was like, damn, this like sounds really cool. And so I don't know. I think that was sort of the seed that got planted for, like maybe we need to like think about going in a different direction. Like Dave as our singer could like really be something really cool. And and just
it sucks dealing with a drunk front man.
Yeah, and like I said,
I'll say that I know,
like love Andy to death, and it's like it just was what it was. But like he just was like drinking a lot, and like sometimes at practice he was drinking a lot, and just we would try to get through songs, and he was messing up lines, and just whatever. It's just like it's stupid like shit you go through when you're starting your first band. It's like whatever. Right. But to be fair, like Andy wrote a lot of the very first lyrics that were like lyrics that stuck till the end of the band, like lyrics that Dave adopted and like tweaked to make his own. But I mean, a lot of those core songs that I would say, quote unquote, were our hits are shit that like Andy wrote a lot of the lyrics on. So, I mean, he played his role in that band. I definitely could never take that away from him.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so anyway, at that Kaiser show, I remember we got done playing and I felt like pretty good about the set overall. And like the whole thing with Dave went really well. And then I remember, I can't remember if it was the drummer of the Queers or like their bass player, but so I remember like coming off the stage and that dude was like standing there and I kind of like walked by him / walked up to him. And I guess I kind of thought like maybe he was gonna be like, hey man, like cool set or like whatever. So I was like, oh, like that'd be cool if he like says something cool or whatever. And so I'm like walking by and he's just kind of like stink eyeing me. And I just like stop and he looks at me with like the most like deadpan face and like expressionless. And he just looks at me and he goes, fucking quit. He's like, fucking give up. Like basically like that is so the worst shit I've ever seen in my life. And I think I said on the Lost episode too, I'm pretty sure that their drummer was even like in a cast at that show.
Yes.
Like, yeah. Like someone from like Cumberland can maybe confirm or deny that if they remember, but it was one of the dudes in the band had a cast. And I feel like it was the drummer. So it's like, not only did the dude from that band like call us out for super sucking, he also was like, basically like, I'm in a cast and my band is like fucking better than yours.
So awesome.
So yeah, basically like fucking quit. Like you guys are like the worst band ever. And I just remember being like, wow, that fucking sucks so bad. Like I mean, whatever. Not that I was like hoping he'd say something cool, but I just like wasn't expecting like fucking quit.
You want acknowledgement. You don't want.
Yeah, like I wasn't expecting him to like drop down and like kiss my feet or anything, but yeah, just like, hey man, cool set or whatever. But no, he was like, that was not a cool set. Fucking stop. Like, give up. Like, you're terrible. Your band is terrible. And I think at that moment is when it like clicked that, hey, that dude was fucking right. Like that fucking kind of hurt my feelings a little bit, but he wasn't wrong. And that was like just a fucking shit display of musicianship, basically. And I think that really was the start of, we came back and maybe like Matt and I kind of started having some discussions, like, and I don't even think there was any sort of like devious plan to kick Andy out. I think it just really was like, that was our second show with him and things just like didn't go that well. And things went so well with Dave. And like, we already knew, like we kind of got along with Dave. And I definitely remember Matt Powell. So I think Matt and Matt Powell may have been discussing like, hey, are we going to get Dave to sing? And they called me and were like, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to like, are we going to kick Andy out and get Dave to sing? Or like, how do you feel about that? And I was like, yeah, I mean, you know, and I was biased to Dave, obviously, because he was my best friend, but
Right.
also like, you know, Andy and I were really good friends too. So I was like, man, that was sort of like my first moment, like being in a position of having to like give like a yay or nay to like kicking someone out of a band. This was my first time dealing with that. And it was hard, man. I was definitely like, fuck, like, okay, like I don't really know what to do. Like, cause I don't want to not be friends with Andy anymore. And I didn't know how he was going to take it, but I think going with Dave is like the right move. So I just remember saying that, yeah, you know, let's go with Dave. And I think they wanted me to be the one to like call and tell Andy.
Fuck.
How and I was like,
is that?
So I was just like, nah, man, like I can't. Like I basically just was like, I refused to do it because I was like scared. I was like, I can't do it, man. Like I like Andy too much and I want to be friends with him. And I just know if I'm the one who gives him the news that like, he's probably never going to talk to me again. And so I remember being like sick to my stomach, like, fuck, like this whole situation sucks. And so one of those guys, Matt ended up calling him and giving him the bad news. But
I would say it's Rhodes because he's heartless.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was Matt. And and to be fair too, I think maybe Matt just probably knew him better than anybody and maybe could like break the news a little easier. So that's how that kind of went down. And then, yeah, it was just, you know, I think maybe even we took like a week or two off of jamming just to kind of like let everything settle and stuff. And then, yeah, we reconvened with, you know, and of course I said something to Dave. I was like, hey, like, do you want to be the singer? And, you know, he was already just like, maybe sort of like hoping that was going to happen anyway. And then, yeah. And then at that point it was just off to the races with that was
right.
Then
I think you can tell too. You can tell when you fucking vibe and when the right, like, I would say the right decision, but like when what do you want to say? Like the tension disappears and all of a sudden everybody's clicking on the same page and they're not say there was a goal, but you know, it's like there's a focus that changes.
Well, and Matt and I have talked about this. We actually talked about this fairly recently too. Just when we were, you know, decided to kind of do like the Craven Moorheads reunion thing or whatever. And we were texting a little bit back and forth and, you know, he was just like, man, he was like, you know, I'm like really stoked to do this because, you know, I just miss playing music with you guys in general. He's like, but, you know, he's like, I just really miss jamming with you specifically. He's like, because we, from very early on, just and it is true. Like Matt and I definitely have had like a really awesome like writing chemistry. Like,
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. It works. You two, for some reason, it works.
I mean, even just like it was crazy. Like when we did that first jam when I was back visiting, and it just really everything just came back so quickly. Just where, you know, like me, like kind of like conducting him, and we have looks and stuff that just like he knows what I want him to do if I give him a certain look, or just like all that stuff is just so it's like it's so ingrained in us. It happens naturally. And
it's that James Brown thing I was talking about.
Yeah, it is. It's totally that. And we have that. And I mean, we had that very early on. And I think like Matt and I and Matt Powell, the chemistry that the three of us had, I think that was just why, not that Andy was like going to hold us back, but it's just Dave was Dave was also like the three of us. It was like, that was what really was going to make everything sort of gel as like one unit. And it really did, because like once Dave got in the band, there was some lyrics that Dave wanted to tweak of some of the shit that Andy wrote that he just wanted to add to, because we didn't necessarily like how some of the songs ended, some of the riffs. So we like, there was an original version of Luther that we did with Andy that actually changed when Dave came in. We like sort of stole a riff from a different song we never ended up really playing, which became the end of Luther. And like Dave reworked all those lyrics to like make them cooler, to fit with like a more updated, cooler version of the song. So just really at the very beginning, he came in just all guns blazing, just like he adapted the lyrics that existed to fit his style, and just the way his rhythms of singing the parts. And yeah, I think we just knew early on that we like, I don't know, like maybe we never even like said this out loud, but we just felt that we like had something with that band, and it just, the songs just started coming like so easily. And just Dave just had sheets and sheets and sheets of lyrics. Like Dave would show up with like packs of lyrics pre-written, like ready to like fucking sing over shit. And
so this is awesome, because Gavin and I argue about this, because I'm like, dude, why aren't you writing lyrics? He's like, I need a song. I'm like, what? It's like, you don't need a fucking song. I was like,
Yeah.
right. I was like, it's okay to have shit ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, well, Dave would do both ways too. Like we would write a song and he'd be like, oh, I kind of know what I want to write to this. And he'd go home and like write shit. But then he had stuff too. Like he would, Dave was always having ideas. Like there's a really cool picture. It's on the Instagram. If you scroll back, like, I don't even know where it is on there, but there's this cool picture of us in the shed practicing. And there's a set list on the wall behind me. And that picture was probably from like 96, 97 ish. And there's probably like 35 songs on that set list. Like we had so many songs that we never even ended up recording. And some of them were like pretty decent songs, but it was just like that's one thing in that band. There was never an issue with writing songs. I mean, that I would say that band, the first like 3 or 4 years of Bombthreat was probably the most prolific I was at like churning out riffs. I mean, it was nonstop writing fucking music. It was crazy.
Do you remember recording in Baltimore? Whatever, tons of fun. It was not tons of fun. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And fucking Frank going there and ripping apart every riff, going, that's from blah, 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 blah. That's from blah, 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 blah. Like he was just being an ass. But he would be like, that's from, it would be like Ride the Lightning. Maybe because you were in recording them.
Oh, like I was in the isolation booth or whatever.
You were in the isolation booth. He was like, he's like, that is Ride the Lightning, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Dude, Frank was awesome, but he could definitely be a cock when he wanted to be, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure he was totally right. I mean, obviously, like every riff I probably ever wrote, I'm like just like trying to make it sound like something I liked. So
yeah, and that's it. And I think that's even more frustrating is when you sit down and you write something, and all of a sudden you're like, you play it a couple times, you're like, fuck, I know that. Well, like I keep doing that. Recently, it's usually I end up playing fucking old Slapshot songs. And I'll like play it and I'll listen to it. And I'm like, I like that. And then I'm like, and I'll think about it some more. I'm like, motherfucker, no wonder.
dude. Yeah. I mean, I certainly no one could ever accuse me of being a extremely original guitar player. That's for sure.
No, it's not a dig because there's how many fucking chords and how many times can you arrange those chords into something that sounds completely original? Like everything sounds like something else.
And I think too, I think that back to the chemistry between Matt and I think that a big part of maybe what made riffs I was writing that did maybe kind of sound exactly like something else, once he would put his spin on it with the drumming, it sort of, that's when it became like a Bombthreat song. I think I hate to give Matt so much credit, but I do think
he's still a putz though.
Yeah. I think that a big chunk and percentage of why we had the sound we did was Matt's drumming, for sure. Because he's a fucking good drummer, and B, he also, I think he just had like maybe like a non-traditional approach to drumming too. So to like rock and metal and punk drumming, that it just wasn't so typical maybe, or something. I don't know.
Right. I have something to say, but it's like it'll start us down a rabbit hole we don't have time for.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we've definitely.
But anyway, so I'll start. I'm going to put my toe in. I think Matt and Ramon I loved because like their styles, though different. Ramon was very straight, and he had like all the what do you want to say? Like the beats I wanted. Like when I listened to something like that was the kind of shit I wanted.
Yeah.
I didn't want some overly technical, but if it was technical, it was hidden. It wasn't like up in your face. It was like there was shit going on behind scenes, but the bass, the core stuff was still where it was supposed to be. Does that make sense?
No,
you know what I mean?
It totally makes sense. And this isn't a diss on Matt at all, but like to like further your point is that when like Matt in Bombthreat, Matt in the Craven Moorheads, like it's like the perfect fit, and it's what both of those bands need, and like no other drummer would make those bands what they are. However, like Ramon and Vomit Snack, when I switched over to second guitar and Ramon came in playing drums and Vomit Snack, like Ramon playing drums and Vomit Snack sort of made Vomit Snack this whole new animal of like aggressiveness and just intensity. And then when Ramon like wasn't in Vomit Snack anymore, and we got Matt to play in Vomit Snack for a while, it was totally different. And like I said, not like a diss to Matt's drumming, but it's like Matt just wasn't like the right drummer to play in Vomit Snack. Like he could learn the songs and he could play them, but it just wasn't the same as like Ramon being in the band.
Yeah, I think even and I guess no diss, but when he started in Lawn Dart, like that it was a whole new animal.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that's a good way to describe that. It's like the difference between Heath and Ramon in Lawn Dart would be like, yeah, the exact same as like Matt and Ramon and Vomit Snack. It's like it became different in a totally different way.
But I think you're right. Like Matt in Bombthreat and Craven Moorheads is like that. It was perfect for that.
Yeah, it's meant to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Ramon and I too, like, I mean, Ramon, which is interesting because I had an equal amount of chemistry jamming with Ramon as I did with Matt, but just in a different way. Like when Ramon and I can like go in a room, set gear up, like he says drums up, I could set up an amp, and we could know shit. Because we've done this multiple times over the years. We actually have like soundboard. We have like recordings of us doing this where we will just get in a room and jam. And within like an hour, we seriously could have like 20 brand new songs, like where it's just, I'll start playing a riff and he comes in as like, as soon as his beats drop, it's like, it triggers something in me to just like sick thrash and metal riffs will just flow out of me. And cause we recorded at Troy's before, just fucking around, just like go down there and jam. And there's like soundboard tapes of us just playing for like an hour or two and just like tons of these like sickest riffs. And like Matt and I used to do that too. Like the other guys wouldn't be at practice yet. And we just start jamming and be like, oh, cool. Well, no surprise, we have like a brand new song for tonight. Like it happened like almost every practice.
That's so cool.
So I know we're like low on time, but I think that we've been very fortunate to just be around a lot of like really good players. Cause I have a lot of friends who play in bands who haven't had the luck that we've had with just like having like a really good core group of musicians to play with. Like,
I agree.
I know lots
Totally
of people
agree.
who are like, I've been in so many bands. I just never can find a cool drummer, or like, it's hard to find a singer that doesn't have lead singer's disease, or
Oh,
I'm just like,
God.
man, like, I mean, like I said, we've had a few like ups and downs with a few random people here and there over the years and stuff, but I'd say 95% of our bands has been like pretty drama free, and we've been fortunate to have pretty stellar musicians.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. All right, kids, it is time to wrap this shit up. I got to pull the ribs out of the oven eventually.
Oh, nice. I'm jealous. I'm so hungry right now.
So talk to y'all next week. Jonathan, you need to come to the table with fucking topic, because you just jumped on the back of last week's and the weeks before.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I think this will be the last episode where we stay chronological. I think we can start like bouncing around now and get into some more like crazy off the wall shit.
Awesome. Love it. All right, kids. I don't know. We have a bumper that does all the dumb shit, but if you have any questions or dumb shit, definitely about the bands, like whose imagery doesn't match them. And I was thinking about it some more. In Kiss, they did do the Dress to Kill, which is awesome, where they're all done, which is so fucking sweet and falls into the Craven Moorhead's frilly fonts and shit like that versus being all tough guy.
Oh, okay. So really quick, I know we're like almost out of time, but really quick, speaking of fonts, you're going to laugh at this. I'm a fucking moron. I just recently, I swear to God, I think it was back when we were like, we're going to start playing shows. I started like relearning the songs. I was looking at the Desperado cover, and I never realized before that those fonts say Craven Moorheads and Desperado. That's like that kind of like Asian looking fonts that are on there.
Looks like it's like Japanese or whatever.
Yeah. I just thought they were some kind of like weird like symbols you put on there, and I just realized what that was.
So I actually tried to get Craven Moorheads and Desperado translated into English into Japanese.
Yeah, I got you.
Because Dustin had a friend who lived in Japan and his wife was Japanese. And so we were back and forth, but it was like we couldn't get a good translation. Like nothing, it wasn't working. So I was just like, fuck it. We're just going to use this.
So you found that font.
Yeah, I found the font.
Yeah, because I guess I never even thought about why. I never even questioned why you did that. I was just like, oh, this looks cool. And I never really looked at it beyond. I just thought they were some weird symbols you created or like graphic design shit or something. But I was like, holy fuck. I was like, that actually says the Craven Moorheads. I was like, I'm fucking stupid.
That's so awesome.
So yeah. All right.
Everybody, see ya.
Yep. See you next time.
Woohoo.
This podcast was brought to you by Potty Mouth Records. Contact us at pottymouthrecords@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at Potty Mouth Records.